There are a lot of struggles that are still the same. And that is, the capacity to be productive and understanding that being productive isn't being busy or overworked. You're there to be productive every second of the day, but it's how you do the do day to day that matters. And I think we've been stuck in a cycle in property management. We're kind of like, we reflect on being busy rather than being productive and getting things done. We also struggle to understand that in property management, things are never ever completed. Like you can't go home and say, my work is all done. And if you do, I say, Houston, we've got a problem. But what we should be saying is, all my work is up to date because, we're doing a plethora of tasks with all of these, tens of actions and steps in there that are all due at different times, different days, and different days in the month. But as long as we're up to date, that's all that matters.
Welcome to the Property Management Podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Walker, aka That Property Mum. Thank you so much for having me in your ears. Look, it's no secret. I'm always looking for an easier way to do property management, and that's not always an easy thing to do when you are bogged down in the day-to-day running of your business. Often things like your systems, processes, checklists, and workflows, you have all good intentions of getting to them, but rarely do you ever get the time to spend on them and do them properly. I was introduced to the concept of workflow when I onboarded VAs into my business. PMVA was the outsourcing company that I used, and they introduced that concept as we set up the workflow and the processes with VAs in my business. And as we were setting that up, I added in the extra steps for the rest of the team so that a workflow was pretty much set up for every process, whether that was lease renewals, new managements, or the sale of a property. They were all covered off on. So I can't tell you how excited I was to hear about Fluso, headed up by the legend herself, Jo-Anne Oliveri. Jo is the founder and managing director of Ireviloution and author of Find Your Property Manager Now. Jo is an international real estate identity who has trained over 500 businesses and thousands of business owners and property managers worldwide. She is recognised as a leading authority on property management and regarded as a prominent industry thought leader. She brings over 30 years of experience in real estate and is sought after as a presenter at the world's leading real estate conferences. She's also been selected as the REB Women in Real Estate Awards Coach of the Year and a finalist in the REB Awards for Coach of the Year, Industry Thought Leader and Innovator of the Year. Jo is known for creating positive change in the industry, and she is also the founder of the Property Management Leadership Summit and regularly contributes to the top Australian and North American real estate publications. Now she's turned her talents into a workflow software, and I think you're going to want to learn more about it. But this conversation is more than just a promo for her amazing software. Jo shares the changes that she's experienced after 30 years in property management, her ideas for what more can be done to improve the property management industry, and what it's like working in property management on the other side of the globe. Selfishly, I chewed off her ear as I'm such a huge fan of her, and everything she does comes with such care and kindness and an openness to genuinely help others. Take a listen to my conversation with Jo. Jo, thank you so much for joining me on the Property Management Podcast. I am so grateful and glad to have you here, such a experienced person in the industry, so well known. You really don't probably need any introduction, but if you could just share a little bit with our audience about yourself and how you got started and what you're doing now.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Kylie. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me. It's a great podcast and I've really loved listening to it and all the wonderful guests you've had on. But a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for almost 30 years and coming from a background in business, when I started in property management, I was really quite shocked at the way I was just kind of like given my seat in my computer and my login and here's your list of properties that you're managing. And I really was astounded at the way that I was given this information and kind of like no background, no history. And I thought, how do I manage $1 million properties? Because I was in Perth at the time, with no history. How do you go in? Where's the continuity? And I was also working in a team where there was three other property managers, and they were all telling me to do things differently. And, coming from a business background, I thought, can't be right. And that kind of like set me on an amazing journey of discovery. I wanted to understand, how to do property management better, how to enjoy what I was doing, because the property managers, I mean, this is nearly 30 years ago, they were upset then about being overworked and, it was too stressful and they couldn't leave the job at work when they went home. And I just thought, that's not what property management should all, be about. And my journey kind of like led me on, I would say, like a deliberate pathway of discovery and learning, where I set about on this pathway where I plan to work in all the different areas of property management, to learn everything about property management, and then real estate, doing sales for a little while, only to learn how they interact together, and then finally to kind of like learn from outside industries, with the goal of always doing what I'm doing today. And I launched my consulting business back in 2009. So I just love what I do, and I've had an incredible experiences along the way, working in Australia and overseas. In just before the pandemic, I've been consulting for a very big company over there, and took up a position as vice president of one of the largest independent real estate groups in Southern California. And I thought, to be relevant, it's always good to strap on the boots. And what better market to do it in than California, where, there's so many demands and everything on property managers. So I was doing that up until the pandemic, as well as my consulting business. And yeah, just, I just see this crystal clear vision for property management now into the future. And I think it's an amazing industry to be part of. It's an incredible service to provide as well.
That is amazing. I mean, 30 years, wow. You must have seen some changes along the way. And you didn't mention that some of the struggles that you found back then, the stress, the overwhelm, are still around today. But even when I started back 15 years ago, we were writing everything out with pen and paper and our reports. We had little cameras with, the cards in them, and we had to come back and download it onto the computer, pray that your computer had enough storage space for the photos to be able to, so even in the 15 years, I've seen some changes. So talk to me about some of the struggles that you, especially with the clients that you still work with today. And I know, you speak at conferences, you're always at events. What are the struggles you're finding today, and maybe how are they different from 30 years ago, or are they still the same, like you already said?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of struggles that are still the same. And that is, the capacity to be productive, and understanding that being productive isn't being busy or overworked. You're there to be productive every second of the day, but it's how you do the do day to day that matters. And I think we've been stuck in a cycle in property management. We're kind of like, we reflect on being busy rather than being productive and getting things done. We also struggle to understand that in property management, things are never ever completed. Like, you can't go home and say, my work is all done. And if you do, I say, Houston, we've got a problem. But what we should be saying is, all my work is up to date, because, we're doing a plethora of tasks with all of these, tens of actions and steps in there that are all due at different times, different days, and different days in the month. But as long as we're up to date, that's all that matters. And I think we kind of get bogged down in the fact that it's like, oh, I've got 20 renewals this month, and I've got 10, tenants moving in, and I've got, 50 items of maintenance I've got to do. It is measured in time motion studies, and we all know the capacity that property managers can do. I think that's where we still get lost in the industry. We feel overwhelmed. And I kind of like reflect back to when I first started in the industry, and property management software was really only just being introduced. We still had a lot of companies that were still using spreadsheets and the old Kalamazoo systems of accounting and things like that. And they were going through that phase of adopting to a new way of storing data. And, I kind of like reflect back to them when everyone was saying, oh, I don't need that property management software, it's all good what we put in a spreadsheet, to today when we cannot do without it. We've realized the importance of property management software and that trust accounting and history recording on clients and properties. And then the other thing that, has been a game changer in the industry is the way that we do inspections. Because I can remember the days when we would go out and we'd do the entry inspection, and then we would have nothing to kind of like measure against when we did the vacate inspection. And hence why there was a lot of, like disagreement between.
It was like that when I moved in.
Yes, exactly. Because we couldn't really measure it properly. And now we can, like we can do our routine inspections and report by exception what has changed since the tenants moved in. And is it just wear and tear, or is it excessive? Is it damage? And we can also very easily measure and monitor changes in the property and work out, is it, acceptable or is it not? And inspections alone is a huge game changer for the industry. I think it's marvelous, but we're still getting property managers who say, I'm not going to go and do inspections. It's like that is a key part of what property managers do, because they need to have that intimate knowledge of the property.
I totally agree with you. And yes, loving some of those inspection platforms like Inspection Express, who, I don't think I've been to court once to QCAT since I have implemented that. It's very hard to fight a 360-degree camera of a property. So
exactly. Yep. And evidence always defeats doubt. So, property managers always need to be evidential in everything that they're doing. And this sort of technology helps us with that.
Yeah. Now you've dived into the prop tech space as well, and you've got a couple of different platforms, and I mean, you've got, your fingers in lots of different pies. So talk to me about whichever ones you want to share. I know we're going to dive into Flusos as well. I actually love that. I'm a big advocate of workflow. It is an absolute game changer, I believe. And it is probably, and let's start with that. Let's start with Flusos, and then we can talk about the other stuff, because, workflow goes a really long way to reducing that mental load that property managers have to carry, that, oh my God, I forgot to do that, waking up in the middle of the night. I have a pen and paper beside my bed, so I'm constantly writing down, oh, I forgot that. Oh, yeah. But with the workflow, you don't have to worry about that, because you know that when you get to that step, it's triggered for the next person or the next step to be taken. So talk to me a little bit about Flusos, how that came about, and, all the benefits of it.
Yeah, I'd love to share that. And there is a story behind it, because Kylie, as a property manager, I remember when I moved to Queensland and I got this job in a wonderful agency, and I was given a portfolio of properties to manage, and they said, you've got 180 properties there, and there was 3 other property managers. And I went through a process of, getting to know my properties over the 3-month period, because they inspected every 3 months in, which is crazy. Don't do that. And over the 3 months, I discovered that 60 of those properties had not been managed for a long time. So with the other 2 portfolios, when I went to my principal and said, look, you employed me to manage 180 doors here, but there's only 120. And he said, how did you figure that out? And I went through the process of self-audit and that I do. And he said, can we do that on the other portfolios? And what they discovered, the other portfolios were only managing 120, not 180 as well. So effectively, we wiped out a whole portfolio that had never really existed. You know, some of those properties had been gone for 5 years.
Wow.
Um, and, you know, that principal who was a selling principal, he ended up loving property management to the point that he sold his sales business and only did property management. And he's one of the, you know, the top sales companies in Brisbane at the time. So it's through working as a property manager and understanding, you know, for myself, how I could go home every night and sleep. And I had 3 children who were very active children. And I wanted to be present for my children as well and not be thinking about the worries of work. I wanted to leave it at work. And so through that, I created a, you know, a checklist system, I suppose you would call it. And through the checklist system, a self-audit system. So I could audit every week to ensure that I went home on a Friday and I knew that all the tasks that should have been done were done. And then I used that system then to then manage teams. And then, you know, when I was consulting for clients, that system worked very well in the office because we identified every little action and step. And we said, you know, this person is responsible for that step before it moves on to the next person. So, you know, right skill, right task that they're doing. But of course, the problem with paper checklists is they can fall through the gaps. And we don't really have eyeballs on the exact step that we're at in a kind of like overall big picture, you know, dashboard or that. So it was through that and my exploring other industries. I'm Disney trained. I've been to the Disney Institute to learn how Disney is so seamless and they just create the magic there. And through my training with the Disney Institute, we went behind the scenes a lot. And that's where I learned about process and protocols and policy and training. And I adapted that into property management so that the task became about the service, the end result, and the experience for the client. So the team wasn't bogged down in just, you know, remembering to do things. And then that actually then eventuated to the technology platform that we have today, Flusos, which Flusos, everyone says, where did you get that silly word from? And Flusos is Italian for flow. I didn't want to have PM flow or anything like that. It's like, that just doesn't work. So Flusos is a kind of like a nod to my Italian heritage and it's kind of like a nice word as well. But what it means, Kylie, is that we are in 100% control of every task that we're doing. And we know that the task is up to date and it can sit there for another month. Like when we're doing tenancy renewals, they can sit there for a month. We know they're up to date. What it means is if someone is away for the day or is on vacation, then we can simply reassign the task to someone else because as far as clients are concerned, they've employed the services of a brokerage or a property management company to manage their property. It's not dependent on one person being there. So we need that ability to move a task around. And also, you know, there could be days when a portfolio manager or one of the team members has a very high productivity day. There's a lot of things that need to get done. As a business owner or team leader, we then have the ability to actually reassign the task to someone else in the team who's having a light day, knowing that every step is being done as it should. Nothing's going to fall through the cracks. And if, you know, a team member does leave or moves to another position, it simply rolls on. We're not wondering, you know, where were they up to? And yeah, I think it's just where we need to be in property management.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it provides greater transparency as a business owner. When people leave, you always uncover all the stuff that was hidden and wasn't done. And for far too long, we as business owners have needed that transparency and that ability to, when somebody leaves and walks out the door suddenly, that you can step into their seat and start continuing on with the work, being productive, and nothing gets missed. So and you've got so many different tasks already, pre-filled or done for you, basically. Somebody who signed up would literally just pick up what you've done, what you've got there. The templates is what I'm looking for. The templates, and they're all customizable as well, aren't they? So
100% customizable. And what we find, Kylie, is, a lot of our users of Flusos, they'll look at it and they say, oh, that's too many steps in there. But that's what we do in property management. And the other thing that we've designed is very high level customer service. So very proactive, very preemptive, so that the client isn't thinking, well, what's going on with that? And then calling a company to say, what happened with my tenancy renewal? Or, did the tenants actually vacate the property? So there's a lot of very high level kind of like actions or steps, if you like, where we communicate with the client and it's all recorded. So we know we've had that communication. And so what it's building in is the client is starting to see the value and the benefit of a professional property manager. And they're not left wondering, like what's going on. I could pretty much be doing this myself. I could go and knock on the door of my rental property and ask the tenant, are you signing your lease renewal? What's going on there? So yeah, when they do see it, we see that kind of like overwhelming look. And that's why we say, look, it's 100% customizable. But what we're finding, Kylie, is a lot of the times they actually come back and reinstall the master templates because they're realizing, hey, it kind of like the templates make sense. So yeah, and that's wonderful to see as well.
that is so clever. I love that. I often have my reception team taking a log of what people are calling up about in the office so that I can fill those gaps of, so we can stop them having to call us and we can, have that customer service in place. So that is fantastic. And obviously with your years of experience, what those gaps are and those customer service points that need to be addressed before a client has to come to us. So, and ultimately that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like delivering that service, providing that value, and ultimately that's what provides trust, which is going to keep them as long-term clients in the business, isn't it?
Exactly. And the other thing, Kylie, I find is that, we're all human, and as humans, we will make mistakes. Humans err, and that's just part of our makeup. So, like if there was a mistake or something just did slip because someone didn't kind of like nudge someone else or reassign someone's task because they were away for the day, clients are forgiving. And I kind of look at what happened during the pandemic with the airlines. And I was flying everywhere during the pandemic. And I can tell you, I'd, get to places and I'd think, oh my gosh, my luggage is not here and I've got a presentation to do. Or, I had one almost 6 hour flight to Perth and they forgot to load the food, no coffee. So it was almost 6 hours and nothing there. And we were forgiving. We forgave the airlines because the airlines shared with us what they were going through. But what happens in property management is we tend to make excuses or blame someone else. Whereas with a program like Flusos, we can actually look at it and we can identify immediately where the problem was. And we can share that with the client and say, like we can see what happened here. This is what we're doing to sort it out. And it just gives that client the peace of mind knowing that, you're not running a business based on one person remembering everything and taking it upon themselves to deliver on what the business promised that client. We are now relying on a program that is guiding us so that it's reminding us what we need to do. And we can put all of our energy into that, beautiful relationship and relevance that we're building with the client. Because right now we are risking becoming irrelevant. And we don't want that.
Absolutely. Definitely not. Lots of business owners definitely do not want that. Lots of property managers do not want that. So,
Exactly.
and does it sink in with other software programs? Because I know a lot of people that I speak with, they, sick of paying all these subscriptions for the different platforms, and the costs do add up over time. So how does it work in terms of, syncing with your property management software and that sort of thing? If you are anything like me, you think you know your rent roll numbers. Well, I thought I did until I had a rent roll health check, and I was quite literally shocked. The money I was leaving on the table was astounding, and this is not something that I'm proud to admit. There were missed management fees, let fees, advertising, and lease renewal fees not being charged, and properties even without bonds. And all of this was happening despite monthly audits being conducted in my business. So how did I uncover all these gaps in my valuable income? Well, I had a rent roll due diligence from my good friend Tazi, aka the Rent Roll Queen and founder of the Tazi Way, a specialist in rent roll due diligence, business valuation, and management rights. The Tazi Way is the innovative force driving the real estate industry. With 25 years of business and real estate acumen, they find gaps and risks in your agency to find undiscovered value. If you'd like to book your business in for a rent roll due diligence, head to the link in the show notes and mention That Property Mum for a 10% discount. If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up, because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Colmio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Colmio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative PropTech Scale Up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is KOLMEO.
Yes, yeah. And that's a really good question, Kylie, because that's the one we get asked all the time. So I'm going to give a bit of a long answer if that's okay.
No, let's go for it.
Yeah. So to explain this, we have looked at integrating with other programs, and there's a lot of programs out there. And we're currently looking at two, one in the US, one here in Australia, where we will integrate. And there's a lot to integration, whereas if you don't integrate, then when you're doing, a task within a workflow, you're just using the kind of like the connecting information. So think of it like when you've got a paper checklist, what you write on the checklist is, the client's name, the property address, and maybe, when a lease is due for renewal, or when a lease is starting, or when a management is starting. So there's not a lot of information that you actually put on a checklist. So to integrate is not really serving a greater purpose, because workflows is about the manual tasks that we do, and property management, our value is in the manual tasks that we do. So, don't be put off using a workflow program because it doesn't integrate. Having said that, we are looking at, the back end in doing that. We are also looking at, because I like to kind of like think forward what's going on with technology. And AI has advanced exponentially for our industry. So we're actually looking at doing it a little bit differently to other tech companies in that we might kind of backdoor, if you like, into an AI program, which then is going to talk to the source of truth, the property management program with all the data on the clients. So we're exploring that, and I'm feeling more confident with doing it differently to everyone else, like I tend to do, and going through the AI program, which I think is going to, add a lot more value. And the other thing, Kylie, is I'm, critically aware of all the costs that we have associated with offering a property management service and resourcing the team and what we do. And one of the things when we developed Flusos, and I said to the other founding partners, is it had to be a no-brainer in terms of cost. And, when we look at things like Trello and Airtable and Asana, they're huge costs. Monday.com, very, very big upfront costs and very, chunky ongoing costs. So our upfront costs are minimal considering you get engineered workflows, property management design and engineered workflows. The other ones you've got to do yourself. Now, to create a workflow, it's not as simple as sitting there and saying, these are all the things that we do, because workflows are very intuitive in that, for instance, if we're doing a tenancy renewal can either be renewed or we go into a vacate. Or if we do a management that's listed for sale, that's a very interesting one, because when you're managing a property that the company lists for sale, then that could go to an owner occupier. It could go to an investor who's going to, keep it with the company to manage, or it could go to someone who wants to do a lot of project management on that property and then offer it back in to the rental pool. So those three areas that it goes off into, we've actually built that into Flusos so that you've got your finger on the pulse the whole time, working with whatever category of client that is. And making sure it's not one of those oh my God moments when you hear that the property's about to settle and we've sent money off to the previous owner and things like that happen. Or, we lose that management because another agency has got in there and shared their service. So, it's gone to someone else and that hurts. So building workflows, it's not something the team can do. And it's why the team have never been good at creating checklists. So the way forward in the future in property management is workflows, but workflows that are designed by someone who knows what they're doing. Because the other thing is our salary costs are through the roof. So it's not really technology costs that's hurting. Technology costs hurt if you get the wrong technology. But what's hurting is salary costs. And then, those high salary costs where the team are only going to do certain tasks. And those certain tasks can sometimes be done by someone who with a different skill level and different pay level as well. So Flusos actually helps you to ensure that the right skill, right pay person is doing the right task, and the high skilled, high paid people are working on the tasks that are, dollar producing, client, servicing tasks.
And can it be built in with VAs as well? Like they all, because I know you do VAs, you've got a VA business as well.
Yeah.
So virtual assistants, it's all like you can literally set it up, the workflow with anybody, assign it to anybody in your team.
100%, Kylie. And, again, that's where we're heading with the, offshore assistants. I call them versatile assistants because they're so versatile in what they do. And, obviously I've done a lot of research and time motion study in that in property management. And at least 60% of every task that we do is admin. So that means that our virtual assistant or versatile assistant or offshore or even trainee, property manager can be doing those tasks, freeing up the property manager or portfolio manager to be focusing on the dollar driving tasks, the client, connecting tasks, and increasing the size of the portfolio that they manage. So, that's another thing that's gone backwards is the number of doors a property manager is managing. And I know that there's a lot of factors that go into it, units versus houses, percentage, the distance, the standard of the property, all those sorts of things. But on average, it's declined dramatically over the years, the number of doors a property manager is managing. And this is what is hurting business. So it's not all their subscriptions. They've got to look at, the technology, the subscriptions that they can use to increase productivity as a result, the profitability that they drive from every door that they choose to manage.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I read on the Macquarie benchmarking report, I think it was down to about 116 properties per property manager across Australia. I know, yeah, which I personally feel like it could be a lot higher with all, if you're utilising the right technology, utilising some offshore support and the way that I structure my business is that the property manager's role and what I believe I am paying them the money for is that customer service element, is the problem solving and the customer service. That's what I want them primarily doing in their roles, not the admin, not the paperwork. I want them talking to my clients, problem solving, fixing problems. So,
Exactly. And, part of that customer service is reminding the clients of what we've just done for them. And I call them the ta-da moments. You have to call the clients and say, ta-da, we just
love that.
Your lease renewal. And those ta-da moments are where they see your value and they hear from you in a positive way. Now, if the team are bogged down in admin, then they don't have the time to do the ta-da calls and share those moments and also request a testimonial as a result of that. The clients will see the value, the clients will happily pay for a service. Whereas at the moment, our industry is kind of like imploding on itself. It's eating itself because property managers are not seeing their value. And hence we're getting this, drive down on fees. It's like we can't let this happen. We've got to, as business leaders, as consultants, we've got to help to change the way that the industry is heading. And workflows is key there. And what I mentioned before about when, property management software first came out and everyone's like, well, we don't need that. 5 years later, you couldn't do without it. And I see that same trajectory for workflows. So everyone is saying, we don't need that. I can do it better myself. I know what I'm doing. And all those excuses. Whereas I think within 5 years, it will be, we cannot do without this. So we've got to get very, very smart as an industry, as leaders, as business owners to say, nope, this is the way we do it. And just train the team.
Absolutely. And, the thing is, you do think that sometimes that you can do it your way or better. But the reality is we don't have time. We literally do not have time, especially if you want to have that quality time and be able to switch off at night time, go home and spend that time with your families as well. You just don't have time. And if somebody's already done the work for you, then why not? There's no shame in taking advantage of that, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So it's like, it's a big mindset, that we have to have it. And we've got to help the industry to feel confident, feel safe in making that mindset. And, one of the things I always share with business owners is you need to have a greater fear of losing clients than your fear of losing team. So if you fear losing clients more, which kind of makes sense, then your team will start adjusting to your vision, the way that you want things done. And we've got to take back control. We've got to start steering the ship and know that, this is the right thing to do. And having the right crew, your ship will reach its destination in glory time and everyone will enjoy the journey. But it's not happening at the moment. So, that indicates we have to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you there as well. Off topic, I just want to ask you a little bit about property management in America. I'm so curious. Tell me a little bit about that experience and, how do they do things differently? What are they behind? Are they in front of Australia? What's the story? What's the goss?
Okay, don't hate me for this, but I hear, quite often where comments made in Australia where they say, we're well ahead of our USA colleagues, and it's not true. I loved the technology over there because the technology was customer service empowering technology. It was customer service connecting technology. Whereas I find a lot of technology we have in Australia actually creates barriers between us and our clients. So the technology over there actually has been designed so, they're thinking about the customer and their experience with us and connecting. And one of the things I absolutely loved, the program I used over there, it was called Rent Manager. Um, and Rent Manager was very good at integrating with different partners. So one of the things I had was keyless locks. And keyless locks does not mean that you put in a code or that. It actually meant that we had this technology that, the cell phone. When someone had a cell phone, I'll just show you my grandchildren there. When someone has a cell phone, we through our program would send them kind of, they called it in America a Z wave. We call it a Z wave here. That simply gave them access to a property for a certain period of time. So a tenant would say, you're there for 12 months, starting this time and ending that time. If they didn't sign a lease renewal and they came and it's like, I can't get access to my property, it's like, oh, your lease renewal is not being signed. Let's get that sorted and we can renew the access. Or, when we send out vendors, so vendors are contractors here, a little bit of different, terminology because a vendor is a property seller
Yeah.
here. A vendor is our maintenance people. So if we sent vendors out to the property, we could simply just send them a code and they had access for a certain period of time on a certain date. And we could see through our dashboard, they'd gone in, they'd left. We could see property managers when I sent them out on inspections, they'd gone in, they'd left. So one, it was accountability by the team. It was also evidence to the owners, like we did actually do that inspection. So that was, key, that, pardon the pun, but it was like key, that technology.
So there was no keys. You didn't use keys. You
No
just
keys,
just
no keys.
all digital.
Yeah, all digital.
God, that would be, you don't know how many times I have lost my shit over keys in my business.
I can relate. And I can also remember the times when I'd go out to do inspections, I felt like, a prison employee with my, ring of all of these keys that I'd walk around with. It's like, this is ridiculous. Or you'd get home on a weekend and think, oh my goodness, I've got all those keys still in my bag. So, like keys is actually a thing of the past. And the other thing that I had through this technology is it would automatically record voice to text into the program when my team were communicating with someone. So, if someone called, then up would pop their name on the program. And we could see immediately if we were in the middle of doing a tenancy renewal or maintenance or, ready to onboard their tenant, that we could see exact stage, or if it was a tenant calling, same thing. And we say, oh, hello, Kylie, you calling about the maintenance that we're currently working on. And the portals were more advanced. So, we were very transparent with the clients because they could see all of this as well, which I think created, like a wonderful platform of cooperation and trust. And then if I did have someone who was getting a little bit animated, I could go in and convert that voice to voice. So I could then, analyze, was it my team that were actually, being a little bit rude, maybe, or, were they being abused by that client? And if they were being abused by the client, I could step in as the leader and have a word with that client, remind them of our policies and things like that. So yeah, the technology there, that alone is amazing.
You
And then
seem really passionate about technology, and is that how you got into this space, seeing all that, the different ways to improve? And I guess it's all that customer service centric that you mentioned is where the angle where you come from with the development of tech and software.
yeah, I kind of I think in my quest to always be relevant, and I always remember this great quote by Wayne Gretzky, who's one of the most revered ice hockey players and most successful ice hockey players in the US. He said the reason why he's so successful is he always skates to where the puck is going, so he doesn't kind of like wait and then try to get there. He's there. He knows the moves of everyone. And I've always kept that in the back of my mind. And I always think, skate to where the puck is going and hit that mother pucker right out of the, ice rink, because we're ready for it, and we can, quickly move. We're agile enough to be ahead of where technology is taking us. So we've already embraced it. And by embracing it, it means you understand it. You also then, look at it kind of like universally, if you like, to understand how does it all fit together. I look at things like jigsaw puzzles, and how's it going to work, and also make sure that we're delivering on promises and experience. And I think, Kylie, a lot of this actually came from the learning that I had through Disney. Like just going there and seeing how seamless it was, and it truly was a magical experience. And when I lived in the US, I was going there every second week just to observe, and ride the rides, of course. But I would look at people and think, wow, you've spent tens of thousands of dollars sometimes to get here from across the Pacific with all your kids in tow. Um, and you've just stood in line 2 hours for a ride to almost be at the front of the line. And then the cast come out and say, the ride is broken down now. Please watch the boards and watch your app for when this ride will be ready. And, have a look at rides that are ready to go on now. And people never complained. And, I just think, we can create that magic in property management as well. But we can't do it with band-aids, and we can't do it half-assed. It's got to be a strategic approach according to the business owner's vision and the experience that they want their clients to have.
Normally, my next question would be about personal development, but I've chewed your ear off for so long now. And I think, for personal development, that Disney experience is something worth looking at, and how Disney does things. So thank you very much for sharing that. What about now somebody who wanted to do a demo with Flusos? I got to get the name right. I'm thinking Flusos. How does somebody do a demo? What is the best way for somebody to reach out to your team?
Yes, yes. So we've actually on our website, and it's just simply flusos.com, not .au, because we're global. Just go in there, and up the top it's got book a demo, and you will most likely be put through to my husband. I think you've had experience with that. So Stace is very interesting in that he's come from a policing background, and being an investor in properties, he's actually loving how this empowers property managers to, deliver on a great service and results for the client. So if you think I'm passionate, he's become very passionate about workflows and property management. So yeah, hopefully you'll get Stace, and he will go through. He's very patient, answers all your questions, and I would say to everyone, like, do the demo and give it a go. Um, you know, Remove from your mind the fact that, you do things your way. do things your way, but look at how it's done a little bit differently through Fluso, and maybe do some customization. That your customization is great when it kind of like creates your uniqueness, but keep a very open mind, and all those tasks that are in there are the ones that really create constant workflow that you can share with offshore team, or someone that you're grooming and growing through your business. So yeah, get in there, do the demo. You're going to love it, and I think you loved it from what Stace was saying.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. So I just had the boot camp to focus on, but now that that's out the way, I'm going to dive back in and I'll probably book in another demo. I did see you've got a 14-day free trial as well,
Yes.
but I will share all the links to that in the show notes, and I'll definitely be sharing more information about what I love about it as we move through the rest of this year, which is getting out of control.
Yes, well, I think they can also go through you directly, Kylie. You can have a chat to them, and then, you can send them off to Stace. And that might be good to actually have someone who's not only independent, but you've got a property management business. So you've got that relevance there and understanding. So I think it could be ideal to just have a chat with you first.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Jo, it's been great to connect with you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Kylie.
There's been so much talk of stress, overwhelm, and burnout in property management lately. Do you want to know how I overcame all of that? Yes, I hit rock bottom multiple times, but I got myself a virtual assistant. Actually, not just one, but 3. But I didn't just get any VA, I got a PMVA. What are they? Well, they are the most well-trained in the business. And not only that, you also have a backup VA, so that essentially your business is never without admin support ever again. And my health, time, and business has never looked back. Your PMVA can take care of tasks like rent arrears, lease preparation and renewals, maintenance follow-up, routine inspection bookings, data entry, audits, prospecting, inbox management, and so much more. And the best part of implementing a PMVA in my business was that it freed up my time and my team's time to take care of important things like customer service. What makes me feel so safe is that PMVA is owned by Tiffany Botel, both here and in the Philippines, making my data secure and giving me more control over the VA arrangement. So head to the link in the show notes to book in your discovery call with Lady Boss Tiff. One thing I dread doing is chasing up rent arrears and debt collection. It takes up valuable time and it can often lead to conflict. But it is a necessary evil when you are running a property management business. But there is an easier way to make sure your tenants' rent is paid on time and in advance, and it's called RentPay. RentPay is a secure and simple to use payment platform that saves agents time and money with fast, accurate receipting while making life better for renters. To top it all off, you'll never have to worry about dishonor fees or unknown deposits again. How good is that? Cleared funds are deposited straight into your bank account in a single daily payment with accurate receipting and reference numbers auto-assigned, and it's fully compatible with all trust accounting systems. It's a super flexible payment option for tenants who can pay rent in multiple ways, including direct debit, credit card, or instantly pay with Payer ID. Fees are minimal, and RentPay even helps with the rent arrears process by automating reminders to renters when payments are due or missed. If you are currently paying large bank fees, struggling with constant dishonors because the funds aren't cleared when their funds land in your trust, or wasting time chasing up unknown payments, I encourage you to book in a free demo with RentPay and give yourself and your renters an easier way to pay rent. Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow, or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.